In matters of the heart, the hermit arrives when the noise of the world must be quieted, when the path forward requires not companionship or validation from another, but a deep, solitary journey inward. This is the card of intentional withdrawal, soul-searching, and the wisdom that emerges only when we dare to be truly alone with ourselves. The hermit in relationship context is not about loneliness. It's about the sacred space between connections, where we discover who we are beyond our partnerships. The lantern represents the inner light of self-knowledge in relationships. The star within, the seal of Solomon, symbolizes divine wisdom, the truth that you must find your own illumination before you can genuinely share it with another. You cannot borrow someone else's light, nor can they provide yours. The mountain peak, that barren, elevated space, represents withdrawal from the valley of everyday connection. It's the necessary distance we sometimes need from relationships to gain perspective, to see patterns clearly, to understand what we truly need versus what we've been conditioned to want. The gray robes speak to humility, wisdom earned through experience, and the stripping away of ego. In love, this is releasing the need to be seen a certain way, to perform, to please, and instead dwelling in authentic self-understanding. The staff represents self-reliance and the support we must provide ourselves. It's the inner strength that doesn't depend on another person's presence, approval, or affection. The aged appearance is the wisdom of experience, the person who has loved, perhaps lost, and has now turned inward to understand the patterns, to heal the wounds, to clarify their truth before engaging again. The hermit often appears when you're single or between relationships, during necessary solitude after heartbreak. The period of intentional withdrawal to heal, reflect, and integrate lessons rather than immediately seeking the next connection. It appears when you're clarifying what you truly want, taking time away from dating to understand your authentic needs, values, and patterns without the distraction of chemistry or loneliness. It signals breaking cycles of codependency, stepping back from the constant seeking of relationship to learn to be complete within yourself. It marks a spiritual or personal growth phase, recognizing that this season of life is about self-discovery, not partnership, and honoring that calling. It's about recovering your identity, reclaiming who you are outside of relationship roles, especially after a long partnership or pattern of serial monogamy. Within an existing relationship, the hermit speaks to the need for healthy space, one or both partners requiring solitude, separate hobbies, or emotional breathing room, not as rejection, but as necessary self-maintenance. It points to individual soul work, recognizing that some personal growth must happen independently, that your partner cannot be your therapist, guru, or sole source of meaning. It may indicate questioning compatibility from a place of clarity, stepping back from the daily dynamics to honestly assess whether this relationship aligns with your deepest truth. It suggests processing relationship challenges privately, taking time to understand your own feelings, triggers, and needs before bringing them to your partner. Sometimes it represents a mentor or wisdom keeper role, one partner embodying the quiet wisdom that comes from experience, offering guidance through example rather than force. When examining your romantic history, the hermit invites understanding your patterns through deep self-examination of why you choose the partners you do, what wounds you're trying to heal through relationship, what you're avoiding in yourself. It calls for integration of past relationships, taking time to truly understand what each partnership taught you, what they reflected back about your unhealed places. It asks you to distinguish loneliness from solitude, learning that being alone is not the same as being lonely, and that the fear of the former often drives poor relationship choices. It encourages developing your inner guide, cultivating the capacity to access your own wisdom rather than constantly seeking external validation or advice about your love life. The hermit asks you to consider, What truths about yourself can only be discovered in solitude? What aspects of your authentic self get lost when you're constantly in relationship or seeking partnership? Are you avoiding necessary self-reflection by staying busy with romantic pursuits? Is the search for love a distraction from the harder work of knowing yourself? What wisdom are you being called to access within? What answers about love, relationship, and your own heart are waiting in the silence, away from the noise of external opinions and societal expectations? Can you hold your own light? Do you need another person to feel worthy, interesting, or complete? Or can you stand alone on your mountain peak, lantern raised, sufficient unto yourself? What does it mean to love from a place of wholeness rather than need? How might your relationships transform if you came to them already full rather than seeking to be filled? The Hermit is a profound blessing in matters of the heart, though it may not feel that way initially. It offers the wisdom of self-sufficiency, learning that you can survive, even thrive, alone, which paradoxically makes you a better partner. It brings clarity born of solitude, understanding what you truly need versus what you've been conditioned to want in relationship. It marks the end of desperate seeking. When you find your own light, you stop frantically searching for someone to illuminate you. It teaches depth over breadth, quality of connection over quantity, meaningful partnership over the performance of relationship. It cultivates authentic attraction. When you know yourself deeply, you naturally attract and are attracted to those who resonate with your truth. The Hermit appears not to keep you from love, but to prepare you for it. Real, mature love, the kind that sustains, that grows, that doesn't drain, can only emerge between two people who have each climbed their own mountain, held their own lantern, and found their own truth. This card whispers, you cannot find in another what you have not found in yourself. The loneliness you fear in solitude is nothing compared to the loneliness of being misunderstood in partnership. The isolation you dread is far gentler than the isolation of losing yourself in someone else's expectations. The Hermit's withdrawal is temporary, but the wisdom gained is permanent. When you eventually descend from your mountain, and you will, you'll carry that inner light with you. And when you meet another person holding their own lantern, the two lights don't merge into one. They dance together, each maintaining their distinct glow, illuminating far more together than either could alone. Trust the Hermit when you feel pulled to decline social invitations, dating opportunities, or relationship escalation in favor of introspection. Trust it when questions about your identity, values, or authentic desires are arising that cannot be answered while distracted by romance. Trust it when you recognize patterns in your relationships that require solitary reflection to understand and heal. Trust it when every relationship feels exhausting rather than enlivening, suggesting your inner well needs replenishing. Trust it when you're considering ending or changing a relationship and need clarity that can only come from within. Be mindful, however, if Hermit energy becomes permanent isolation driven by fear rather than conscious choice. Be mindful if solitude is being used to avoid all vulnerability and genuine connection. Be mindful if the inner work becomes endless self-analysis that never leads to re-engagement with life. Be mindful if you're using spiritual bypass or self-improvement to hide from the legitimate needs for intimacy and belonging. The Hermit invites you to climb the mountain alone, not because love isn't sacred, but because only there, in that high, silent place, can you discover the truth that will make you capable of sacred love. The lantern you carry isn't for finding someone else, it's for finding yourself. And that, beloved seeker, is the only foundation on which lasting love can be built.